Hi, everybody. I can't even talk. I'm so excited to be back on the old bike path that I can't even articulate words. So, Jim Ostrowski back with the Liberty Moving podcast in the old neighborhood, which I won't be frequenting very much anymore, but I thought I'd come back and do at least one more podcast before we relocate. Don't ask, please. You'll know when I know. We did sell our house in North Buffalo, though. That is a public fact. So what I want to talk about today is seems a little unusual topic. I'm not against electoral politics. Well, why do I even have to say that? I'm a political consultant. I've been involved in electoral politics for 56 years. I like to count. I like accurate counts. Run for office, manage campaigns. I'm an election lawyer, make a little bit of money getting people on the ballot. But the reason I have to bring this up is because I'm running for chair of the Libertarian Party, and the main reason I'm running is that the electoral politics strategy has failed. So you can, and I've pointed this out many times, I'll point it out again today. So there's this sort of natural inference there that, well, gee, Jim's against running candidates. Well, it's not true, and I'm going to explain why. The one doesn't follow from the other. But in any event, I want some clarity here. So let's talk about electoral politics. And the one thing I've said over the years, I'm softening my position here because people tend to want to quibble over this. And I don't want to quibble because I think the main point is there and really cannot be refuted. So you have to ask yourself, when is the last time an election resulted in a overall increase in liberty for American citizens? And look, I'm a lawyer. I've written a dictionary. I use words very carefully. So I don't mean American Indians. I don't mean slaves, because neither group were considered to be citizens at the time. And by the way, if you say, well, Lincoln's election in 1860 resulted in the end of slavery. Not really. It was the war. It wasn't the election. So I don't want to quibble over that. But in any event, the truth is, I don't want to. I could talk about the Civil War all day long. I've written 2 massive articles about the Civil War, really essays. But so, when is the last time that an election resulted in an increase in overall liberty for American citizens? I think it's 1800. You may quibble. You may say, no, Ronald Reagan didn't do jack shit. But you can argue that this is not pure mathematical science or physics. But I think, in 1800, Jefferson beat Adams, and at least in the first term rolled back government quite substantially across the board. His second term wasn't as good, did get rid of slavery in the Northwest Territories. I'd like to point that out. No politician, no libertarian is as good in office as he was or she was when they were running. Let's be honest. That's how the system works. So let's talk about the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is founded in 1971. Really got full ballot status, and we're on the ballot in a lot of states in 76. But really didn't get full ballot status until 1980. So 1980 to 2024. 1980, we got 1% of the vote. 2024, we got like 6%, 0.6% of the vote. So we're going backwards. We've been at I say 1% for 50 years. I'm being kind. At the national level, we're under 1%. And if you take out, excuse me, if you take out Gary Johnson's sort of second campaign where he kind of watered down the platform, and a lot of people voted for him not really understanding, like, you know, what a libertarian was. If you take that out, we're really at like almost 0.5% for president. So, okay, let's forget that. So, do we have more liberty now? You could say, well, we had an educational effect. People borrowed our ideas. The ideas filtered up to the blah, 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 blah. No, we have less liberty now. And that's all in my 19-page memo. I'm not going to belabor the point. If you think we have more liberty now, then you're not going to agree with my argument. But I think the burden's on you. Government is bigger. The dollar is worth less. We're being regulated to death. The endless global military empire and foreign wars continue. The government spies on us. They got plate readers everywhere. You know, I think if you're going to argue that we have more liberty now than we did then because of one or two kind of fluky issues like marijuana, you know, legalization. I mean, I just don't agree with you. I think you're wrong. So you're not going to agree with my argument if you think that we have more liberty now. And then the final argument is I deal with this in the 19-page memo, which is on Facebook and X. Well, but if we didn't have the Libertarian Party, we'd be worse off. Well, you can't even make that argument, because what happens in politics is that movements crowd out other movements. Movements crowd out other movements. And believe me, I knew this very well. Boy, this is a big topic. It's going to take a while. I learned this very early as a libertarian. I became a libertarian. I knew about the Libertarian movement party in '74, and I was favorably disposed, but they weren't active, and I didn't really know much about them. Voted for Roger McBride in '76, but really jumped into the movement in '79 and got active. I went to Brooklyn Law School in '80, conveniently, because that was the headquarters of the headquarters of the Libertarian movement was in New York in those days. I'll talk about that on a separate occasion. So I'm well aware that, like the Reagan movement, he was perceived as a libertarian. He used libertarian rhetoric, and a lot of small libertarians supported Reagan over Ed Clark. So I'm aware that there's this crowding out factor. So you can't even argue that without the Libertarian Party we'd be worse off, because the Libertarian Party electoral strategy, which is not successful, crowded out other approaches. For example, the Libertarian Republican movement. I'm not going to go into that. There was a Libertarian Republican movement. That did not succeed. Just using that as an example, libertarians could have, en masse, worked within the Republican Party. Would that have worked? I don't know. You can't, get in a time machine and make it happen, and you'll find out. But it certainly crowded out direct action, which I think will work. So the electoral strategy has not worked. Now, does that mean, and the evidence for this is overwhelming. If you want to debate me, I'll debate you all day long. Does that mean that we should immediately cease all electoral politics? No. I mean, as I said before, it's like, I've been involved in politics for 50 years. I'm not going to repeat myself. So this is why we shouldn't. Well, first of all, when you're in a fight and you're not winning, you don't tell the other side, hey, other side, I'm not going to use certain weapons. I'm going to holster some of my weapons. No, it just doesn't make any sense. So, also, there's nothing, even if you think that politics, even if you think that politics is not the best strategy, there's still a use in running candidates, has an educational value, which is a form of direct action, and it keeps the flame alive. And this is one of the things I want to say. People say, well, you're saying everything we've done is no. Not everything. No, look, the Libertarian Party, you have an army in the field. That's an accomplishment. You've kept the flame alive. That's an accomplishment. Now it's time to take that flame and apply a new strategy. So no, it hasn't. Your effort and my effort over 50 years has not been for naught. It's just that we now have to recognize that pure reliance on electoral politics strategy has not been successful. So what am I proposing? I'm proposing we keep doing electoral politics, but we do it in a much smarter way, much more strategic, and we supplement it with a major supplement of direct citizen action. And so one of the things I want to point out here is that direct action doesn't really contradict electoral politics, because you could say, well, we're going to have to divert resources. I know we're going to have to. We won't have to divert resources, and the reason is we're going to grow the party. New strategies are going to bring in new people and new money. We're not going to have this sort of cycle of people get involved for 5 years, donate money, get active, see that nothing's been accomplished. They get pressure from the home front, the family, the relatives saying, what are you doing with all that, wasting all your time with this movement? And then they burn out. If we have winning strategies such as direct action, such as voting with your feet, pulling your kids out of government school, getting armed, getting fit, getting trained, jury education and activism, particularly grand juries, teaching economics, voting with your mind, voting with your health. These will bring people in. We will grow the movement, and we will be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We'll still be able to run candidates, but they'll be more successful. Why? Because one of the reasons we don't get votes is because people don't understand economics. That's why we literally need to teach economics to grow the base of potential voters. We need to pull kids out of the government school, because we know that government school basically brainwashes young people into loving the government. After all, they're raised by the government. Why wouldn't they think the government has to basically control everything in society? That's how they grew up. And they learned how great the state was and how horrible the market was and how, the greedy capitalists and all this other bullshit that people learn in government school. You pull those kids out, when they're 18, they're much more likely to be open to a libertarian message. So there's a synergy between indirect political action and the new strategy that I propose, which is direct citizen action. Direct citizen action will not only work on its own terms. You move from California to New Hampshire, you've increased your freedom, and you've moved the country slightly towards liberty. And if enough people do it, that's not slight anymore, it's big. So, but there's also a synergy, and I'm sort of beginning to wrap this up, I think. But there's also more synergies than I've already outlined. Because why can't, I'm proposing teaching economics, teaching 2A. I'm proposing the Walk for Liberty, like I'm doing right now. I'm proposing voting with your feet, and I'm proposing a massive exodus from the government schools. Well, here's the thing. Why can't our candidates do this when they're running? When you're running for office as a libertarian, why can't you hold seminars or whatever you want to call it, whatever the best marketing term is, that people aren't scared they're going to be bored stiff? The economic and 5-lesson program that I have, it's only 30 minutes long, and it's not boring. It's interesting, and then there's a Q&A. The candidates can teach economics. In other words, you can use the old strategy of political action and integrate it with the new strategy of direct action. You can do your Walk for Liberty on the campaign. Get all your campaign staff together. Do a Walk for Liberty. Do a podcast. Talk about strategy in the campaign. You're also getting fit. You're getting healthy. You're getting mentally sharper. I mean, look at me. How long? I've been going for 20 minutes. I'm 68 years old. I have no notes. I've stumbled a little bit, a little choppy here and there, but so far it's been pretty freaking coherent, I think. So I think I pretty much said what I want to say. I'm reaching my old haunt at Shoshone Park where I used to pretend to coach baseball. So I'm not against electoral politics, but we need to supplement it and synergize it. Sorry if I made up a new word there. With direct citizen action. And I have many other ideas. I have a rural strategy. If you're going to do electoral politics, we need to focus on certain states. We need to focus on rural sheriff's races that we might actually be able to win. We need to try to steal a congressional seat. And frankly, I think it's time to focus on winning a state in the Electoral College. Can you imagine if we won Wyoming? The bargaining power that we would have to determine the next president if the Electoral College was close. So that's about it. If you want to know more about my strategy, I have a 19-page memo. I've got a direct action strategy. I've got a political strategy. I have a special two-way strategy. And I have a very detailed rural strategy with a total in the memo of 27 different ideas. So I hope I've clarified that. Not against conventional politics. We just need to do it smarter, better, and supplement it in a synergistic way with new strategies and new marketing, messaging and tactics and strategy. So thank you very much, everybody. From the North Buffalo Bike Path, maybe the last time I do the Liberty Walking podcast from here. Have a great day. In Texas over the weekend, debating for national chair. Thank you.